I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Sewaddle. Small insect larvae becoming a little cocoon, and then becoming something bigger and more complex, has been used as an introduction to the concept of Pokemon evolution since Viridian Forest back in the original Game Boy games. Many bugs produce their own cocoons, nests, or webs from silk and other secretions, but some creatures use objects from their environment to build, in a way that is reminiscent of human construction. We saw bagworms when we talked about Burmy last generation, and today we'll learn about some other critters that smartly use leaves. Sewaddle is an adorable little bug and grass type caterpillar, wearing a suit of leaves with a big collar to show off. Pokemon White tells us, "This Pokemon makes clothes for itself. It chews up leaves and sews them with sticky thread extruded from its mouth." While Black 2 and White 2 tell us, "Since this Pokemon makes its own clothes out of leaves, it is a popular mascot for fashion designers." And Violet says, "The bumps on their heads are sensory organs. When Sewaddle meet, they greet each other by rubbing these bumps together." This leaf-cutting behaviour is seen in real-world leafcutter ants, the larvae of which pull apart leaves and fashion them into strong, difficult-to-penetrate nests. The name Sewaddle comes from sew, sewing together clothes, and swaddle, the practice of wrapping a baby, which is very cute. The Japanese name Kurumuri comes from Japanese words with similar meanings. As with all caterpillars and larvae, this is just the beginning. It doesn't happen as early as in the likes of Caterpie, but at level 20, Sewaddle will evolve into Swadloon. Swadloon is almost entirely covered by a blanket-like coat of leaves, its grumpy little face peering out from a gap. Bundled up like this, and looking unhappy to be awake, it gives the impression of an unsociable teenager who has been told by their mother to come downstairs and say hello to guests. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 tell us, "Preferring dark, damp places, it spends the entire day eating fallen leaves that lie around it." The name, Swadloon, is of course a combination of swaddle and this time cocoon, as it moves from merely wearing leaves to fully ensconcing itself. The Japanese name, Kurumayu, incorporates mayu, the Japanese word for a cocoon. Pokemon Violet tells us, "Swadloon wraps itself in leaves for protection. It uses the two leaves atop its head to detect air movements and fill out its surroundings." There are real-life caterpillar species which wrap themselves in leaves, first for shelter, and then eventually as the basis for their actual cocoons. Watching this happen, the process of attaching silk which tightens and pulls the two ends of the leaf together is very reminiscent of Spider-Man rescuing a train or boat. Oddly, Swadloon strongly resembles another shy Pokemon with a partial grass type, the recently introduced Ogerpon. Both monsters appeared in the recent Teal Mask DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and once or twice I saw a Sewaddle from a distance and actually thought it was Ogerpon. Whether Swadloon is a shy introvert or an actual insect in its chrysalis, it takes a lot of trust for it to open up. Naturally, this means high friendship is needed to evolve it into Leavanny. Leavanny resembles a mantis, with a smiling face and a fancy petticoat made of leaves. It has a dainty posture, but hands of sharp blade-like leaves. Pokemon Scarlet tells us, "This gentle Pokemon has strong protective instincts. The leaves on its arms are sharp enough to slice a thick tree in half with one stroke." Well, Pokemon Violet tells us, "It fashions clothing from woven leaves." Though gentle in disposition, it will show no mercy to foes who target young Pokemon. This is reflected in strong attacking stats, which, combined with slowing opponents through the move Sticky Web, does manifest in powerful moves from Leavanny. Unfortunately, Grass and Bug is not a great typing defensively, and Leavanny doesn't have the range of attacks to be an all-out sweeper, so its usage competitively is niche. Welcome back to Does Andy Remember Gen 5 Pokemon?
And if so, does he have any thoughts about
Sewaddle.
I like Sewaddle. Yeah, it's a cool little leaf worm.
Yeah,
pretty useful member of my team so far, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little addition to the Pokemon canon. I don't think it's evolved into Swadloon yet. I like Leavanny though. Leavanny's pretty cool as well. So yeah, it's a pretty solid bug grass family. I approve this message.
How do you feel about bug grass?
I mean, I'm sure it's super weak and a terrible idea, but
I'm just thinking bug doesn't add much to grass and grass doesn't add much to bug.
I just think, if bugs belong in the grass.
Well, that's it, right? Bug and grass are almost the same anyway.
Well, they're not, are they?
Not quite.
Got different weaknesses. That's why they're so weak.
Pokemon Black tells us, upon finding a small Pokemon, it weaves clothing for it from leaves, using the cutters on its arms and sticky silk. Or Pokemon White tells us, it keeps its eggs warm with heat from fermenting leaves. It also uses leaves to make warm wrappings for Sewaddle. This habit of childcare is behind the name Leavanny, which, as well as using the words leaf and nanny, may derive from Leavanna, a Roman god of motherhood. She is much better known in her Greek depictions as an incarnation of the goddess Artemis, who was venerated by the Spartans. As a goddess of both motherhood and the hunt, she was bloody and hardy, and perfect for that warlike people who thought of themselves as a race of super soldiers. The Japanese name, Hahakomori, is also made up of the words for leaf, mother, and babysitting. This motherhood aspect was even referenced in some of Sewaddle's Pokedex entries. Pokemon Black told us, Leavanny dress it in clothes they made for it when it hatched. It hides its head in its hood while it is sleeping. And Scarlet tells us, Sewaddle chews on leaves to make its clothing. It's trying to mimic the leafy garment Leavanny first dressed it in. In the anime, Ash caught a Sewaddle. At first it was dismissive of him, then it grew to trust him and evolved through both stages, eventually becoming a powerful Leavanny. Video game players will also remember a Leavanny in Berg's gym at Castelia City. As an artist, it made sense for him to use this fashion designer monster. I love Pokemon based on mythical monsters and cool creatures, but I also have time to appreciate a creature inspired by the realest of heroes, mothers. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon is composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Sewaddle and family were designed by Reiko Tonoi. Writing, producing and editing is by me, Luke Summerhays, while funding is provided by lovely listeners at patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. Next up are Venipede and Cottony, so if you have thoughts about those or any other monsters, hit me up with a DM or an email to lukelovespkmn@gmail.com. If you like this podcast, please rate and review wherever you're listening, or tell a friend. And if you want to hear more Pokemon chatter from me, come by twitch.tv/lukelovespkmn, most Saturday nights from 9 PM UK time. And even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Sewaddle, and remember, I love you too.